Hello, good evening. This is Sashiko Live Streaming, and this is Atsushi. Ooh, I am quite sleepy. Sorry to be late. Am I late? No, I'm not late, but a little bit busy day. So let me check the. Yeah, there we go. The audio is fine. Hello, Caroline. Hello, Leah. Welcome to the live streaming. So this is the live stream. This is the Sashiko Live Streaming where I do the Sashiko stitching while talking about Sashiko story, or I talk about Sashiko story while I'm stitching. This is not a lecture or tutorials or webinar, so I'm not going to talk about something technical, but I would like to share some of the stories or answer questions from like cultural perspective. That being said, there's nothing gonna happen on the screen, so if you could bring some of the stitching project, that might be good to stitch together. And this will be like a place for everybody to be, so not that much judging. I think what? I won't be sorry, there was a noise. Anyway, I'm not gonna say like what is the right, what is wrong in Sashiko. I would like to fulfill what is the missing part of Sashiko. All right, I will change the camera. My daughter is supposed to be sleeping, but how is your my long coming along? It's coming slowly, but coming. So these are the one which is waiting for the kasane. Some of them are done. There's like a 40 pieces on the somewhere in the box, and these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meters waiting for kasane, which I don't want to do, and another 7 pieces waiting for running stitch. So yeah, it's coming. It is going. I just gotta finish it at some point. And I'm not gonna repeat this, but it's really helpful for me to talk and stitch simultaneously. It is a really good pattern for me to stitch and talk. If I stitch a different pattern, I might not be able to talk this much because I have to use my brain. With this pattern, I don't have to really think. So that's one reason that I keep stitching. And of course, other stupid reasons that I'm stitching, but you know, it is going. But it's gonna take some time. And as you can see, I'm preparing the pattern by hand. It's not like a printed pattern, so that does not help neither. So yeah, just a little bit of hello. Welcome to the Sashiko Live Streaming. Yeah, so there's not that much things going on. It's just the same. Well, I mean, that's the important thing, right? Like this, it's same thing, same stitching, same pattern, same, ordinarily. It is the kind of, we expect that we will have the same day tomorrow, but Sashiko is the culture of those who had to wish for the same day tomorrow. So I think it is good to have the same day and do the same thing. I think I brought some topic today, but just a second. More than just information. Yeah. So today's topic is more than just information, and I will probably write this topic on the Instagram or somewhere else. But I think what I want to deliver is more than the information, more like a experience. And that's why I'm trying to be very specific about what is taught. If the goal is to share the information, I don't have to be stubborn like this. I can probably just tell and then that's it. But the information itself is great and the information is very necessary, but what I would like to deliver is the experience. And that's kind of a little bit beyond the information. Not knowing, I mean, knowing is gonna be good, but again, what I would like to share is a little bit beyond, more than not, beyond the knowing. Hello, Shinobu-san. Stopping might be a little bit of translation, lost in translation. It can be stitching, but yeah, stabbing is probably the translation from the Google. I am sleepy today, I have to admit. Wow, sorry. If what I'm talking about today does not make sense, that's because I am extremely slow. I don't know. What did I do today? Very, very strange. What did I do? Yeah, a good part of Sashiko is just there's a way to stitch while doing something else. And I can, I do stitch while talking, and I hope you will have something that you can do while stitching. And if one focus on just the stitches length or how to make even stitches, then their experience is gonna be probably what is taught in English right now. Like they will probably start feeling either judgmental or start saying that let's embrace the imperfection. And that's one way. That's one way to enjoy Sashiko, but that's not the experience I would like to deliver. The experience I'm talking about is not focusing. It does not make sense. It does not make sense at all. I understand. I don't want to make it too philosophical, and it does not make sense. But it will make sense when they practice that. And that's what I would like to deliver. I sometimes get a comment saying like, it is quite philosophical. And yes, it is probably philosophical, but at the same time, it is how we think too. So it's not really I'm not trying to be philosophical more than necessary. It is philosophical as the result, my stories tend to be philosophical. I am out of town today, so I brought along a small knitting project to work on. My current Sashiko project is kimono and too big. Yeah, if you're working on kimono, that is too big to carry. And I'm so not willing, I'm so looking forward to see the result. Even I'm not doing it. Well, I don't think I would do it, but no, I mean, I have to finish this one first. I have to finish this one first, no matter what. Otherwise, I cannot go anywhere if I don't finish this. But it's gonna be quite a project to deliver what I'm trying to say. Because if one only focus on the stitches size, it is probably impossible to stitch 100 meters basanoha. It is too tiring. if one does the Sashiko one stitch by one stitch, it will probably take years, could be 10 years. So that this project will, I hope actually, this project will deliver the message from different angle. Hello, hello. Yeah, so to me, I don't want to go back to the topic again, but this is to me the art. Let's not talk about what is art or if Sashiko is the art or not. But for me, this can be the art project. I've read somewhere that art is the creation to deliver the message, and I am trying to create something to deliver the message. So I hope this can. I don't know if there's any place to exhibit this 100 meters of those, but to explain to not as an information, but more like as the experience. I hope that more people will enjoy the Sashiko as the way we do. One stitch by one stitch is not wrong at all. Just it's probably close to impossible to stitch this much because they have to focus on that. I don't think I can. Speed is not important, and accuracy is not even important either. But amount of the stitching can define the practice and experience. So, I mean, after all, the people who stitch is the. I keep saying that from last week, but I trust the people who stitch. I don't trust anybody else about Sashiko. If somebody asks me to get on the discussion, I would not I will not engage in them if they don't stitch. If it's just a regular conversation, I'd love to join that. But if it's like a discussion to decide or define what it is, there's no point of jumping in. So the amount matters at some point. It's kind of crazy to, spend one life with Sashiko. But it is also crazy to spend the life with the other Japanese artisans who actually spend the whole life with Sashiko too. So for some of us, including myself, Sashiko is not just stitching. It defines as our life, like it or not. And therefore, I think I have to speak up. Are you trying to tell a story with your project? Yes. I will probably write the artist statement to explain what the art is about. But it is kind of like a antithesis, more like a question to the current trend. The current trend of Sashiko is the simplicity and beauty of the patterns. Result is the focus. In the rough summary, Sashiko is art because it looks beautiful. We kind of skip the process. And I hope that this 100-meter Basanoha will be the project to enhance the process more than the result. I mean, they will see the result first, then they can think, like, imagine that why this person did 100-meter Basanoha stitching. Like, what is the purpose of that? What is the motivation behind that? And those kind of craziness can probably trigger somebody's thinking, imagination. When they can imagine that, I think they can start wondering why and what. So, making something beautiful is one way to express myself as the artist. But I don't think I'm good at that. The colors, choice of patterns, I don't think I can get out of like those, traditional blocks, and it can be boring. My mother, Keiko, does that job. She's outside of the box. So I would like to challenge the possibility of making Sashiko as the art within the frame of tradition, which is the tradition that tell us Sashiko is not art. So the framework itself is telling us that Sashiko is not the art. But I would like to propose the way to make it somewhat art by this 100-meter. So I can explain both why we think that Sashiko is not the art and why this can be the art. Best way to share the story is to encourage them to question. The worst way to tell is to encourage them to encourage them to hear what they want to hear or read what they want to read. So, for example, I write a blog article saying cultural appropriation in Sashiko. That is actually a bad approach. If my goal is to share what I think about Sashiko and cultural appropriation issues, because my message is that there's no such a thing as cultural appropriation in Sashiko as far as one acknowledges the stories behind it. I don't mind, or I even encourage them to call it Sashiko if they want to. But even if that's the message I write or say, some people don't even read that. Some people just imagine what I would say based on the title. So they jump on the discussion based on the information they have, not the experience they go through. As the result, I have a completely two extreme comments on reactions on my message. One is saying that that's great that I encourage them to learn or enjoy Sashiko, and the others are always like saying like there's no such a thing as cultural appropriation in Japan, or like, well, you should I occasionally get those. So if you come to the blog article cultural appropriation in Sashiko, you can find completely two different comments. So it's kind of fun. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the big sigh. It's a little long week, I guess. Plus, well, it's actually getting a little bit easier this week. It was not as hot as the previous week. So it was good. It seems like Japan is experiencing something very historically brutal summer heat. So I don't I mean, that's another reason I don't want to go back to Japan over the summer. But then, well, it is hot. I mean, it's hot and humid, so it's not my favorite. I have not experienced the summer in Japan for 10 years. This is the 10th year, so I don't know if I can go. But one day, hopefully. How hot has it been in Japan? On some of the places, for example, in Gifu Prefecture, it could go like 36, 37, sometimes 38, so close to 100 in the worst case scenario. But the temperature itself sounds already bad, but the humidity is the bad. Humidity is the worst. So sometimes people say like the desert in those like we can imagine that it's gonna be very hot. The people from Israel said that it was very hot, like uncomfortably hot. I think Israel was pretty humid too, but in those desert area is not that humid comparing to there, so it's not really a temperature, it's more like a humidity wise. Probably do the same complaining every week, but why did I decide to do this with both sides as a finish side? I have, if I can go back to that time, I will rephrase my promise. It is doubling the work by making the both side as the finish side. So last week it was 108 degrees here in Indiana. Wow, that's bad. Oh, Susan, thank you so much for the question. I have a question. Can you tell us about how you experience stitching, Sashiko? Not sure that makes sense. On IZ Instagram, you said the form and act of stitching are more important than the outcome. What is stitching like for you? That is a very good question, and that's probably what I'm trying to deliver as the message and verbalize it. And ideally, let me phrase. How can I phrase it? I spend a lot of time with those people who stitch Sashiko as they breathe. I am not there, but they were stitching as if they breathe. So they cared about the result, but they did not care about it simultaneously. Like more like it was very natural. For me, I don't think I stitch as breathing because I don't stitch as much as they did, and also stitching is not. I feel very strange when I do not stitch, but it does not necessary. I mean, it's not like a breathing. So like to me, it's really purely to me. Sashiko is the act of learning somebody's life. well, that includes myself. The Sashiko is more like the act of learning or even remembering something. And of course, result is important, but it's not something I kind of show off, which I might show off. I might end up showing off. I might be I might end up with making money out of it. But more importantly, it is the act of this might make sense, but since I hated Sashiko so long time, I hated stitching, right? So since I changed that concept quite recent, like 10 years ago, I think stitching is the process of confirming who I am. Like why I'm, I don't want to be too philosophical. I'm being philosophical and I don't want to be philosophical that much, but it's more like a communication, conversation. It is conversation. It's the stitching, so I don't, it is crazy if I stitch without a thread, but I think I would do that too. Do you crave stitching? Well, I do and don't. That's a good question. I sometimes crave. But it's not like addiction. I understand people go to addiction in Sashiko, and I could go there, but I'm trying to still control myself. So yes, I do crave sometimes. And I always wish that I could be just stitching throughout, not worrying about, how to make ends meet, not worrying about how to support my mother or support the other suppliers. I wish I could skip all of that and focus on stitching. But like I'm trying to find the piece missing. There are tons of missing pieces in my memories, which I shouldn't have missing it. But because I hated Sashiko so much, I feel that my Sashiko itself is incomplete. What I teach as Sashiko is not incomplete. I'm getting more confident that it's kind of one package. But the Sashiko I practice or I receive is still incomplete. I'm still trying to find it. And stitching is more like the process of finding that. Do you think other Sashiko stitchers are as philosophical as you? Yes, I think in somewhat, because in my understanding, this is my opinion, so you may disagree, but Japanese culture itself is quite philosophical. They don't like philosophy, but they are quite philosophical, in my understanding. Well, we have to define what is philosophical, but they understand what I'm saying quite easily. Like they don't really need the answer. We have like a common sense, and those common sense can be quite philosophical. So they don't like the word philosophy, but I think they will share some of what I'm saying. For example, my mother probably cannot define what philosophy is, and I don't think she is willing to talk about what philosophy is. And she doesn't think that what she makes is philosophy or what she does is philosophical. But to me, what she makes is quite philosophical because of what she says and what she does. So the Japanese culture itself is quite philosophical, and I don't think I am being philosophical. I'm probably being very chatty Japanese. We don't really talk about our feelings. Yet when the Japanese talks about our feeling or process or express ourselves, they might be like me. They don't talk. I mean, as long as I know, I don't remember them talking that much. Do you feel like it's a conversation with other stitches and or generation of stitches while you're stitching? Yes, that's one way to guess. That's what many actually other Sashiko artisans say. When they stitch on the vintage fabric or something they received, that's more like the collaboration between the stitchers who stitched 100 years ago or 200 years ago and today. So that's the way to kind of communicate. To me, what I'm trying to communicate is like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, which unfortunately I lost them. They're gone. So I am communicating by stitching based on the wisdom or techniques or ideas they left to me. So stitching does make sense, but the pattern does not really make matters. That's the reason I keep saying that. It can be just straight line. It's really I don't want to say moratorium, but trying to find myself again. As shitty that sounds, it is what it is, I guess. My day is not complete without some stitching. That's a good way to say that too. That's probably the future I would like to reach. But I feel the same way, and many other friends are like that too. It's like this might be sometimes this might be a good example. So I grew up with the Sashiko artisans who stitch as if they breathe, right? To me, it's like a brushing teeth. As the practice wise, like of course it's the communication style for me to kind of understand what I'm doing and what Sashiko is. It's like a time to think about it. But at the same time, as the practice wise, it's like a brushing teeth or taking shower. You can skip it if you're really tired, but that's kind of, you know, if it's emergency, of course I can skip. But if I have to skip it for 5 days, that's a little bit too much of skipping. So I would like to. But I hate brushing my teeth at the end of the day. Well, yeah, that's for you. That's for you. I mean, to find something like that, probably for somebody might be taking like somebody who likes running. That might be. It's not something I have to encourage like. It's not something I encourage myself to do it every day. So no, it's the custom. It's the part of the everyday. It's part of a day or like ordinary day. If it's emergency, if it's not extraordinary day, then it can be kind of skipped. But I hope I'm explaining okay. Susan, am I answering your question? I'm not probably answering your question as the answer, but I hope I'm kind of forming the answer to your question. So it is not really the creative work. I don't have a studio because I wish I have a studio, but I don't. Because I don't think it's necessary to me because I'm not doing something creative. I'm just stitching, so I have a hard time ending my day if I don't do some stitching. Well, welcome to the addiction. So I am not even there. I often say that by somebody, by they taking my Sashiko class, online class, in-person class, after few months, few years, few amount of experience, I keep saying they surpass me. And some people say it's a joke. Some people say it's a humbleness. Some people say it's just, jargon, some, BS. I mean that. I am not ready yet to be there. I have so many things that I have to overcome and I can enjoy it, but I am enjoying it. I'm sorry, this might sound philosophical again, but there's so many missing pieces, yet there's so much thing that I have to clear or process. There are a lot of things are missing, and Sashiko is the process of finding what is missing. At the same time, there's pile of things that I have to process. And Sashiko is also the process of Sashiko is the act of processing those something I have to process too. And the result of this thinking is not usually a good result. This like the stitching and thinking itself often goes back to, I don't want to say negative, but sadness, not anger, but toward myself. It's kind of sad, or even depression for that matter. I don't want to go there. As the result, I depend on the like Netflix or talking to somebody, or so I don't do stitching by itself because of that too. And I think the Japanese people who had to stitch did not have enough time to do only Sashiko for the purpose of Sashiko. They probably had to talk to. It's just imagination. But yeah, I am not ready to be there yet, or I might not be. I might not be able to reach there throughout my life. And please do not cut and paste this because it can be a very big issue right now. Because now we live in the equality society, and the gender is one thing to gender is one thing we care. So I don't mean, please make sure that I don't mean that there's a difference. There is like an inequality between the gender. But 30 years ago, in Japan, there was a huge, I don't want to say discrimination, well, probably discrimination between the genders. And one of them actually was women to the men. Very, 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 very few percent of that. And I still strongly remember that I will not be the Sashiko artisans because I'm not a female. It's a very strong memory. And I sometimes feel that's true. I don't know what is that, like what makes me different. I don't know if it's a hormonical thing, so I don't know how, like, what is the difference beyond the difference. But I try to be the whole stay-at-home dad. I try to feed, breastfeed my baby, which I believe, I hope, I believe that all of the stay-at-home dad with having the wife or spouse working outside full time has experienced similar things with. I think they understand what I try to do. But anyway, nothing came out from me, right? So that can be the biological difference. But back then, they mentioned that. And, that's not a discrimination. That's more like I don't want to say differentiation, but let's say that there's a difference between the gender, and that might be affecting my memory or my fact or my stitching. I don't know, but ever since I started stitching, I don't think I am the best stitcher in Sashiko. So I am not planning, or I do not even try to be the best Sashiko creator. I don't think I am talented, or I don't see myself being there. It might be my poor imagination. So I kind of decided to be the bridge between the past to the future, or the cultural bridge. And like, if I want to be the top creator in Sashiko, I should be just focusing on making that, because that will help this culture too. Somebody said, like, the artist will be famous after they die. Well, if my goal is to be, the top of this craft, like most well-known stitcher or artist, then I probably should or would, or even want to stitch more. But I don't, yeah, it's not, it does not sit with me well. Again, this is a Japanese cultural thing, and we have tons of issues too. But from the ancient Japan, they believe that men and women has different power, ability, and one of the kind of special power women had was to talk to the so-called God. It's not a Christianity, or it's not like some absolute God. It's more like a spirit. Like, yeah, but we have to call it God. There's no other translation. But something great. They believe that women's are only capable of doing that. And we still follow that kind of thing. Like, men use those power to solve the issues, but women's kind of talk to the God. What am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. Where did I slip this much? What was I talking to begin with? But it is something completely different from what the other people want to hear from me, especially for those who think that Sashiko is the art, or even like solution to fix the sustainability. Not fix. If they think that Sashiko is the method or vehicle to reach the sustainability, then they probably don't like what I'm saying. But stitching can be just the act of getting the beautiful result, and there's nothing wrong with that. And many people, including many Japanese people, enjoy Sashiko the way it is. They want to make something beautiful as the result they stitch, and that's perfectly fine motivations. At the same time, there are some people who include stitching as their part of life ordinarily, and if they can, put the stitching as their ordinary, it is definitely a form of Sashiko. At the same time, I want to make sure to communicate that there were people who didn't even think like that. Just Sashiko was there. And it often happened out of no choice. They did not even have a chance to think about it. And my goal is to include everybody on board. I don't think I deny anybody. Let me know if I kind of deny or exclude somebody. Do I? Because the biggest fear I have is to leave somebody behind. It is very, very idealistic and stupid way to describe it. But I want to be fair to those who was the part of this culture. And that's, I think, what I can do at least. At the age of, like, today, this year. If I can go back to the Japan 20 years ago, like even 30 years ago, then this story will be completely different. I may be more aggressive to pass down what Sashiko is, because there were many, many more people who were kind of scary in terms of kind of teaching. There were no internet, there were no, it was not easy to get information back then. So Sashiko was still more like experience instead of the information. So I may have a different approach to pass down what Sashiko is. But right now, because information is more, we consider that information will solve everything, we might be missing something important. And I would like to focus on the experience side. I think you don't see yourself as the top of Sashiko Stitcher because your mother is the artist in the family, so you're not supposed to take that role. Oh, maybe so. But I don't think Keiko thinks that she is the top Sashiko Stitcher. She is really inferior. I don't know if you catch that. She might be hiding it, but she is very, very inferior. She not is. She feels inferior to the others very much. She does not show her stitching much, like the act of stitching. Like of course, I ask her to join this live session once or twice, and she does not want to stitch in front of the camera. The reason I don't think I can be the top of the stitcher is because I know what one person can reach to. So let's say 20, 30 artisans I know from childhood, there's a huge, huge gap between what I do and what they do. And I might be able to reach there when I get 60 or 70. But I don't know. And they say that I cannot be there because I'm not a woman. And I don't agree with them 100%, but I kind of feel them too. Please encourage her. I do encourage her, but that's more like a PTSD. It is a PTSD. And I of course I see her stitching, but I'm just her son. So it's really the PTSD kind of thing. I do have a PTSD that I'm not a good stitcher from them. So your gift is to be the ambassador, especially with your language skill. You don't need to be the top stitcher. That's how I think. So there's a reason that I can speak English. I hated Sashiko so much that I can speak English right now, right? Like if I loved Sashiko, if I were obedient, if I were not troublesome like this, if I were a good kid, I wouldn't be able to speak I would be stitching in Japan right now, but I wouldn't be able to talking to, non-Japanese people in English. So yes, my role is here. And that's why I don't really blame myself for not practicing Sashiko the last 30 years seriously. That's kind of excuse too. Like, sometimes I feel I feel I want to blame myself for not being serious when I was a child. Especially sometimes when I cannot do what I cannot do. There are a lot of things that I would like to learn, master, or even learn as a skill. Like I know how to use a sewing machine, but I don't know how. I cannot make the jacket like my mother makes. Those are the skill I could have learned when I was a child. I learned how to stitch Sashiko because I was the third generation that I was supposed to take over the business. But at the same time, I could have, I would have, I should have. You aren't allowed to be there because you are a man. Still, all these years later. Right now it's different. I hope. I don't belong there anymore. So I don't know if that's the case. But it's the like those man and women thing is like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, let's say. 20 years ago is like before 2000. Right now, I don't know is the answer. And it's in my childhood. I wish Keiko doesn't feel that way. Her work is amazing. Yes, and it's kind of tricky, but because of her inferior, she is good. Inferiority? No. I think she has a lot of those complex, I guess. So she is the outcome of those struggle, and that's why I often say like Sashiko cannot be the art, but what she makes can be the art. So would your mother would your mom teach you her jacket making secret? She tries. She tries, but yeah, we will try our best. It's like a feeling. There's no teaching per se. You know that. Her teaching is not really the teaching, doing together. So to make a jacket, that's like another skill, and I don't have to learn from her. I can go to like a tailoring school, by learning how to use sewing machine. Making a jacket itself is not that big of hurdle. But to make the jacket like she makes, I think there are tons of things that I have to. Like it's art, I guess. That's why I call her work as art. I can try to improve my skill, but good skill does not mean to be the artist. Susan, yes. So yes. But the making jacket itself is not that big of a deal because there are tons of people who can make a jacket. I mean, the same side like Noragi, Samue, and it's kind of difficult to find somebody professional because that's kind of almost vanishing industry as well. So making jacket itself can be the losing industry, not losing, lost, vanishing industries. But as long as we have a Sashiko stitched fabric, it is possible. Like for example, those tailor or those, people who make jacket can make the Sashiko jacket out of those fabrics. If I provide that to them, they can make those jacket. So it's not about technique or how to make it, it's like what to make now. Now I'm completely changing it. For Sashiko, I like to share the stories of how to make it instead of what to make it. When it comes to this art, like my mother's art, it's not about how to make it, it's like what to make it. And I don't know if I can. Well, you have to meet my mother. She's like a. She's. I don't know. Well, those who came to Japan with me may be able to describe my mother better than I do. Maybe. Probably those who spend a lot of time in Japan as a Japanese Sashiko stitcher can explain who my mother is like. Because like for me, I keep saying it's kind of nightmare. Nightmare. I mean, she is great, but you know, she's my mother. So mother as the artist is not a good combination sometimes. And sounds like she would teach or let you watch, but you're not sure the inspiration is in your own heart. She is a dedicated, passionate artist that is primary focus of her life. Yes. This might be a little bit difficult to explain. But I will do my best. And I hope that it's not gonna create any misunderstanding. But let me explain that without stitching so I can focus. Many people think that Sashiko is beautiful. Sashiko is fun. It's good for the environment. So we kind of focus on the good side, right? In today's world, today's society, Sashiko is considered as something good, something positive. But as the one who practiced Sashiko for the life, Sashiko is not so positive only. It can be positive. I learned how to transform the negative to the positive. That's why I can enjoy it. But there is a negativity in Sashiko. Well, I sometimes call it shame. If they did not have to stitch, they wouldn't be stitching. So that's kind of like it's a stitching in the condition where there were no choices. As the result, it has a lot of aspect, both negative and positive, and of course in the middle too. My mother's Sashiko is exactly like that. So her approach to Sashiko is considering fabric like her. So the fabric itself, often vintage fabric from the vintage fabric, or even borrow for that matter. But those are the fabric which is not on the main stage of the textile life. If they were on the main stage of textile, they would have been part of the jacket or costume or something, that a human can use. But because those fabric were left behind, put on the closet for a long time, somebody else found it beautiful, so it's in the market again. But those are the kind of not a dead, but more like a retired or not even retired. Those are the forgotten piece. And sometimes my mother consider them, not consider them. She feels inferior to the other Sashiko artisans because she was not allowed to stitch much in my family because she doesn't share the blood. For that, I think she views fabric as part of her, and her goal is to make those left behind fabric to the main stage. So that is one thing that I don't have. Does it make sense? Oh, the ring is here. So she does not explain well. She does not have ability to verbalize that, but that's what I observe from her. Like since my childhood, she is really talking to the fabric and also, thread. She talks a lot, and sometimes it's mumbling, right? Sometimes child understands it as mumbling, but it's like a conversation. Like she nod without anybody. She say, I see, or like, well, without any person around. It's fucking scary at some point. But that's when she communicate with the fabric or thread. So that kind of, I don't want to say PTSD, but some of the memories she has is strongly connected to Sashiko and kind of enhance the negative part of Sashiko. As the result, her work is extremely happy. That's probably the common feedback I receive about my mother's work. It is just delightful, happy. It's not like negative at all, because that's what she is dreaming of. That's what she wants to transform from the left behind fabric to the shining star on the stage. So I don't have either of those. I'm a spoiled, troublesome, philosophical, big head, smart. I don't want to say smart ass, but I'm like very, very privileged for that matter. I was born in the Sashiko family where I had everything. She was the kind of opposite, so she does not probably realize it, but that's how I understand her work. So my goal is to actually bring as many people as possible to my mother's place. Just by meeting her, I think they can start learning what Sashiko is little by little. It does not have to happen instantaneously, but by meeting my mother, something shift. I believe, I hope. So oh, everybody's so good at summarizing. Lear, I like your explanation, bringing the forgotten fabric back to the forefront. That's what my mother does. And Keiko is giving a new life to the old fabric, just like she's giving a new life to herself by stitching it. There we go. So it's more like another chance, and she believes that she wants to believe that everybody has a chance, and I think that's what she's doing. Okay. Do you think something will be able to shift for her too? I don't know. Quite honestly, I don't know. But I keep saying that in Japanese, so in order to make sure that I share the same information in both language. But I sometimes ask a similar question, right? Like I don't know what the heck is going on. So I sometimes ask my mother, what are you doing? What is she doing? And I have tons of questions about what she does. And she said that she often said that your Sashiko started when I die. That I don't really like about her saying that, but it is probably what she thinks. She is trying to. It's like a button. It's like a relay, like, something that I receive. And it is often asset, like house, sometimes probably the stock, sometimes in heritage, something, something important, something valuable, something shiny, something gold, something silver, you name it, some books probably. For us, it's just this Sashiko and its practice. It happened to be. My father gave it to me when he passed away, which I have to go over more. It's one of the things in the pile that I have to process. But it's like part of the cycle. I don't show how to use the thimble, but you can find it from this description. This is not the live streaming for that, but you can find the description where to find those thimble. It makes sense that she would think that. Huh? It makes sense that she would think that. So it is. That's a very interesting topic because I really don't know. That's what. That's a very good question. But I really have to keep thinking that to make sure that hmm, it's assignment. I have to carry over that. But I hope that I explained the kind of bigger picture. Like bigger picture. It's not complete setting, but I hope that I explained the bigger picture and it can be part of the explanation. Well, I mean, by getting that, this might be another explanation that why I don't really like how Sashiko is becoming something completely different by leaving somebody behind. Like some people say there's no need to use thimble, there's no need to do the running stitch. And that is true, there is no need. But by saying that as the answer of Sashiko, they say that they're leaving this Sashiko behind. And I don't think that's fair. Everybody's so nice. Caroline, actually, it's not a clover though. What we use is not from clover, so the thimble itself is from the website on the description. Tonight's conversation was so deep. Thank you. I wish I could. So, I actually thank you for that question. A question often gives me the topic to think through. So, if there's any questions or request for me to talk about, I can probably Like, there's nothing I don't share. After all, like, sharing the stitching itself is too much in terms of hiding. If my goal is to hide something or protect something, you know, I'm too late. I shouldn't be sharing the stitching to begin with. But that's not my goal already. So the question itself is very helpful. I just don't answer those questions that can be found quite easily because that's not what I want to do here. So that's why it's kind of strict. For that matter, it can be quite strict, but I don't want to be those who just offer the answers and don't think about it. I just want them to research, learn, and those process itself is very important to learn what Sashiko really is. The current trend of Sashiko is unfortunately the result of asking and offering the very instant instant gratification. So I would like to fix that. Well, it's over time a little bit. Thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. I will do this every Thursday night starting 9 o'clock. Again, like the question is very helpful for me to. I'm not, I was extremely sleepy in the beginning, but I could keep my energy up. So it does not have to be about Sashiko. I mean, because it's probably going to relate to Sashiko somehow. It can be about Japanese culture, but like learning what we think as normal can be part of the explanation of what Sashiko really is. So yeah, and if you're watching this as an archive, and if you have any questions, please leave the topic for the next week's live streaming. I might be able to use that as the topic. My friend Salar, who is traveling with me and knows nothing about Sashiko, is really enjoying this conversation. Has he learned something? Great. Leah, please teach her something. You can teach already, so if she wants to use the thimble, go ahead. Don't worry about me. Like, my goal is to spread it. Spread it, so. I mean, I don't teach. I don't teach anything free here. I used to teach everything for free, but I don't do it because that creates a lot of work. Offering everything free creates a lot more work than I thought. So I stopped doing that. But teaching among friends, teaching among families, those are perfectly fine by me. So she can use what you have and she can start learning how to use the thimble. She's gluing button on her costume. Well, that's more important now. That's what you have to do. You don't. Well, Demon Slayer has a lot of patterns from this. I mean, similar to Sashiko. So Demon Slayer is the anime based on the Taisho right after Edo period. So some of them were probably doing Sashiko in the far from the Kyoto Edo. But it's a long history, so Sashiko costume might be a little too much, but all right. Thank you so much for coming to the live streaming. I will finish really soon. Just a second. I want to just finish this one thread because I don't have to. All right. Okay. 15 minutes over, but thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko live streaming. I will see you next